Hello everyone, Tesla once again, and I hope you all are doing good. Well, for today's the 12th review session, and uh, for the prayer, I request Tatiana La to kindly lead the prayer for Russian people, and I will lead the prayer in English, and we have Eugene La as an interpreter for today's class. Thank you. Let us all begin our practice by setting up proper motivation, which consists of three parts, while being mindful of both aspects, the object being visualized and the manner in which you visualize it. Refuge field. In the space in front of you, visualize Buddha Shakyamuni, His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama, and all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. They are looking upon you with immense kindness and unconditional love, just as a mother looks upon her only child. Next, bodhicitta field. Visualize seated on either side of you, your kind parents, mother on the left and father on the right. Additionally, you are accompanied by all other dear mother sentient beings, leaving none aside, and you are leading them in this practice. The purpose of the practice to manifest the Buddha nature within you, which is the ultimate source of happiness, by removing the two mental obscurations, afflictive and cognitive obscurations. Let us now recite the following verses while mentally invoking their profound meaning and associated experiences. Enthused by great compassion, you taught the Immaculate Dharma to dispel all perverted views. To you, the Buddha Gautama, I pay homage. Enthused by great compassion, you taught the Immaculate Dharma to dispel all perverted views. To you, the Buddha Gautama, I pay homage. Enthused by great compassion, you taught the Immaculate Dharma to dispel all perverted views. To you, the Buddha Gautama, I pay homage. Taking refuge and generating bodhicitta. Sangye choda soge chonam la chanjo pado tane kyapso che take jinso gibe chonam ge dola penche sangye doba sho. Sangye choda soge chonam la chanjo pado tane kyapso che take jinso gibe chonam ge dola penche sangye doba sho. Sangye chodan soge chonam la chanjo pado tane gyapso che tage jinso gibe chonam ge dola penche sangye doba sho. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By my accumulations of the practice of giving and so forth, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By my accumulations of the practice of giving and so forth, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By my accumulations of the practice of giving and so forth, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. Independent origination, there is no ceasing, no arising, no annihilation, no permanence, no coming, no going, no separateness, and no sameness. I prostrate to the consummate Buddha, the supreme among all teachers, the one who taught this peace, which is freed of elaborations. I prostrate to the mothers of the hearers, the Bodhisattvas and the Buddhas, which through the knowledge of all lead hearers seeking pacification to complete peace, which through the knowledge of paths causes those helping migrators to achieve the aims of the world, and through the possession of which helps subduers expound a variety of teachings. The one who has transformed into the reliable guide, motivated by altruism to benefit sentient beings, the teacher, Sukata, and protector, to you I make prostrations. The one who has eliminated the web of conceptualization and is endowed with the divine bodies of the vast and the profound, who eternally shines forth and forever noble light rays, to you, the Buddha, I make prostrations. Inspired by wisdom and compassion, today in the Buddha's presence, I generate the mind of full awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. Let us all recite the essence of the dependent origination mantra along with the Geshe-lastic quoting.
Om ye dharma hetu prabhava hetum tesham tathagato yavat तेषां क्षयो निरोधः एवं वाति महाश्रमणये स्वाहा ॐ ये धर्मा हेतुप्रभव हेतुं तेषां तथागतो ह्यवतत् तेषां क्षयो निरोधः एवं वाति महाश्रमणये स्वाहा ॐ ये धर्मा हेतुप्रभव हेतुं तेषां तथागतो ह्यवतत् तेषां क्षयो निरोधः एवं वाति महाश्रमणये स्वाहा.
The meaning of the Tentel Nyingpo mantra: all phenomena arise from causes. The causes are taught by the Tathagata. The cessation of the causes as well is taught by the great seer. Profound, peaceful, elaboration-free, and clear light and non-composite. Such is the nectar-like Dharma I have discovered. Finding no one to fathom this teaching, in silence I will retire into the woods. Beyond utterance, thought, and expression is the perfection of wisdom, which is unborn, unceased, and has the nature of space. It is the object of apprehension of self-realized wisdom. To you, the mother of the Buddhas of the 3 times obey obeisance. The 4 seals of Buddha's teaching: all composite things are non-impermanent. All contaminated things are of the nature of the suffering. All phenomena are of the nature of emptiness and selflessness. Transcending sorrow is peace. The Guru is the Buddha, the Guru is the Dharma, likewise the Guru is the Sangha. The Guru is the source of everything wholesome. I go for refuge in the Guru. By the sound of the vibrant drum of Dharma, you liberate all beings of miseries. I beseech you to kindly remain and give teachings until the end of the expanse of billions of years. The Buddha does not watch the negativities of beings, nor does he remove their miseries by his hands. His spiritual realizations are not transferred to them. It is by teaching the truth of suchness that beings are liberated. With folded hands, I beseech the Buddhas of all the directions to shine the light of Dharma for all bewildered in misery's gloom. Instructions from parting from the 4 attachment. If you are attached to this life, you are not a spiritual practitioner. If you are attached to samsara, you have no renunciation. If you are attached to your own self-interest, you have no bodhicitta. If there is grasping, you do not have the will. Thank you. I now request the Beshla to kindly proceed with the session.
Now we're supposed to play the mantra, Achyuta mantra. Achyuta mantra, please. Thank you.
Sure. I'm sorry, we'll recite the Heart Sutra mantra along with Keshalas recording.
Deyatha Om Gati Gati Paragati Parasamgati Bodhi Swaha Deyatha Om Gati Gati Paragati Parasamgati Bodhi Swaha Tyata Om Gati Gati Paragati Parasamgati Bodhi Swaha त्यथ ॐ गति गति परगति परसंगति बोधि स्वाहा त्यथ ॐ गति गति परगति परसंगति बोधि स्वाहा त्यथ ॐ गति गति परगति परसंगति बोधि स्वाहा त्यथ ॐ गति गति परगति परसंगति बोधि स्वाहा.
Okay, Deepeshla, I request you to kindly proceed with the session. Thank you.
Thank you, Laila. Thank you to Chenla. Thank you, Chenla. Thank you, Satala. And hello to everybody. Welcome back to the review session. So today we're going to cover two classes that we released last week, both on essentially on karma and workings of karma, various classification. So it's basically always a good idea that when we recite these prayers, we're trying to set a good motivation. But for most of us, perhaps for most of us, I'm not too sure, but when we're reciting, maybe our mind is distracted, mind is not with the words or with the meanings, then really a good motivation is not set, right? So that is something that we have to strive for. That whatever we do, we give our 100% attention to our best ability. Of course, including myself, probably in modern life, we do not have this capability of just paying full attention to what we're doing. And it would be truly amazing, to think about it, that the power of mind that we have, how much it gets dissipated because we're not focused, right? And it's also good to remember that what kind of, we've all had our experiences, our own experiences, experiences of our loved ones, family. We've done 3 types of suffering in our course, but for most of us, again, we relate to just the first one, the evident suffering as suffering. We are not able to relate, to suffering as, the subtler ones, the suffering of change, the pervasive condition suffering. It is a matter of habituation, right? So often a lot of masters have said that it is only when evident suffering hits us, then we realize that how terrible, our state of affairs is. That, for the wise ones, they can see the signs, right? And when we cover today's topic, karma, like one of the things is that we literally are, it's a untrained mind is an uncontrolled mind. Input given based on the imprints, habituation, output comes from us, right? It's not like that I want to do it like this and I should behave like this, my mind should behave like this. It doesn't work, right? So for the wise one, they can see it with these kind of signs. For most people, it will be when we get the evident suffering, then we remember how miserable life can be for me, for my loved ones, or for wherever I am in terms of the environment, any kind of problem that you face, right? So those are the opportunities to remember that this is exactly what Buddha taught, the Om Ye Dharma mantra, that we, whatever our state of sufferings, miseries, we can bring an end to it. And so precious that we even hear these things that, that I can get rid of all my problems. Like we mentioned, if you go to modern science, medical science, you go to a big hospital, psychiatrist, psychologist, they'll say, no, 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 no. You as a person have anger. You as a person have this problem. You can't overcome it. That's a basic human instinct. They will not even talk about that you can overcome it completely. So Buddha was not like a lot of people think, oh, Buddhism talks about suffering all the time, suffering. Number one, this word suffering is not a correct translation. The Sanskrit word is dukkha. It's in nature of suffering. All contaminated things are in nature of suffering. And remember, like in the four seals, not everything is suffering. Only the contaminated things are in nature of suffering, right? So, then we get this energy that, yes, indeed, if I can do something about it, I should do something about it. And not only me, people around me, all my dear mother sentient beings, they are also in a similar state. So one cannot develop bodhicitta without renunciation. Renunciation is what? Aspiration that I want to be free from suffering, right? So it's always good to remember the two aspirations that we spoke about. Uh, that everybody wants to be free from suffering and everybody wants happiness. This is something universal truth about sentient beings, including you, including me, all sentient beings, right? And then before I go into my slides that I prepared for today's session, we are more than 50% into our course. We've covered quite a lot of topics. We've covered life story of Buddha. We've covered three turnings of wheel of dharma. We've covered Buddha nature. We've covered three baskets and three high turnings. And in the three turnings of the wheel of dharma, Geshe-la has not covered the third turning that is pending, but we've covered the overall structure. The third turning Geshe-la will cover in the last class of NCC2 in that recording. Okay, we've covered four noble truths, four seals, Buddhist psychology, bodhicitta, and Venerable Geshe-la started with the topic of meditation. We covered one session, and one session is tomorrow. So that's where we are. And in the last week, we released the recordings for the two topics of karma. Okay, so that's where we are. Like when I can share the slide. So the two classes. This is for some of you, if you've grown up in a culture where this is often spoken about karma, 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 you would be quite aware. But then there's a huge risk that you grew up in this culture, then you are the one carrying a lot of misconceptions. And there could be people who grew up in culture where this is not spoken about. So you may have like, what is this? I've seen some people, that I've interacted. Some of them have some mental blocks. How can this be possible? So don't start like that. Like when Geshe has mentioned so many times, like for rebirth, for things that we don't start, we start like clean slate. That okay, what is this? If you belong to a culture where this is not spoken about, and you're hearing about these things for the first time, then at least don't start from the negative side that this is not possible. And don't even start with this is possible. Be like open-minded and see how it goes, right? So we're covering the two C25 and C26 classes for NCC2. So next slide. And people who have come from the background where karma is not spoken about, you grew up in that culture, I would say, if people who you are probably better off, from people like me who grew up in Indian culture where people speak about karma, karma, karma. And after I learned these things, I was like, wow, so many misconceptions they have, right? So people who have misconceptions, they have to undo it and learn it. People who have nothing, it's actually an advantage for you, right? You start from clean slate, provided you have an open mind, not with a negative bias that it is not possible. Then it's quite difficult. Okay, all right. So this is how Geshe-la starts the first class. That why Geshe-la chose this topic for NCC1, and then we have the similar topic in NCC2. That many people have many misconceptions about the concept of karma. And then knowing the correct details about law of karma, one naturally engages in good karma, right? Why? we'll see, and we've seen before, Arya Nagarjuna's verse, ceasing of karmas and afflictions is nirvana. If you remember that, there are 5 points that any suffering or any level of happiness, the immediate cause can be attributed to the karma. Right? So if our aspiration is to get rid of miseries and our aspiration is to acquire maximum happiness, then this is the first thing that we can do. Right? So one naturally engages in good karma, which will result one being free from miseries, and then bodhicitta as a motivation, one's happiness expands. Right? So we've covered the topic of bodhicitta earlier. Of course, it's not that we covered it and now everybody is like a bodhisattva in this class. That's not possible. We have to work on our mind. We have to work on our self-centered attitude. But at least theoretically, intellectually, if that's the motivation, then certainly the happiness will expand, right? And then this verse we've also looked at earlier, which Buddha quoted, many times: do not commit any non-virtuous actions, perform only virtuous actions, subdue your mind thoroughly. This is the teaching of Buddha. So this summarizes the whole teaching of Buddha. So it depends how much one has studied. If one has studied very well, such kind of simple verses that may appear simple, people can have profound understanding about these things. So essentially, again, that if we do not want suffering, then we should avoid the non-virtuous actions, right? And then from a concept of karma, which we will learn, it's not necessary that things happen immediately, right? They can be between the karma being accumulated and the ripening, the time gap can be huge, but it's very efficacious. What does it mean by efficacious? It certainly works. And of course, when the time gap is huge, we may not get, evident reasoning, which is straightforward, right? Like from a karma perspective, I can give a very simple example that there's a hot plate. You put your hand on a hot plate, your hand burns. This is also cause and effect. But the result and the action, it's immediate. So you get a conviction. Oh, I did this and my hand burns. So I need to avoid it. But in the workings of karma, sometimes many times, the karma accumulated and the ripening, the time gap is much, right? Quite huge. So naturally, people don't have conviction for it. And you need somebody to teach that this is the cause and effect, right? So, for example, during the Newtonian time, somebody said there are subatomic particles and each atom can have such huge amount of nuclear energy, right? It probably was, probably not acceptable at that time. So as things go subtle, the laws can change. It because of being subtle, our sense consciousnesses are very gross. We can't figure out things which are working at a subtle level. We need something else, somebody else who has realized it, some other means to understand it. Okay. So here, then Gishla is giving many examples that we can get some conviction on karma. Right. So if you remember in one of the classes, I think we covered 3 types of phenomena: evident phenomena, slightly hidden phenomena, and very hidden phenomena. And Gishla very clearly mentioned that if you come from the science background, one of the extremes we can take is that, okay, if only science proves it, then I believe it. So that's very naive, and that's very narrow approach that we are taking, if we take that approach. Why? Because science does not touch all types of phenomena. Extremely hidden phenomena certainly does not touch. Right? For example, anybody's date of birth. Right? How do we establish it? Because your mother told you, your father told you, you have a birth certificate. You yourself don't remember it, and you cannot use any reasons. So those are extremely hidden phenomena. Does your date of birth exist? Yes, of course. You were born. You were born on a certain date and time. We are trying to establish that exact date and time. Right? So there, it's a very hidden phenomena. And then there are slightly hidden phenomena like subtle impermanence. Of course, science touches it. There are many subtle phenomena which fall under the category of slightly hidden phenomena, which science does not touch. So to take this approach that if science proves it, then only it's a reality, then it's a very narrow approach. It's like saying, that, I have a headache, and only if, some physicist will tell me what medicine should I take, then only I'll take the medicine. Doesn't work like that, right? You go to a medical doctor. What is the medical doctor? Medical doctor is based on biology. Biology based on chemistry. Chemistry is based on physics. That's how it works, right? So it's a multidisciplinary approach, and then whoever is a specialization, that's the way it works, right? So remember that when we're talking about karma, this is not something science explores. So if science does not explore, they have no authority to say it exists, it does not exist, right? So this could be one approach to start with, that okay, right? So Gishla is like, giving examples that we can get some conviction about karma, that how this universe came into being, right? So one of the more, I would say, widespread theory within the science field is the Big Bang theory, right? So the universe came into being, there was a Big Bang, and then it was quite hot. There was some material called plasma, and then galaxies and stars started forming, and billions of years, and then in the last few 100 million years of planet Earth, things started cooling, water, and then unicellular organism, and like that, the universe came into being. Then this theory, of course, if there was a bang, then there was something that exploded. Where did this? It had some material to explode. Where did this come from? Right? Where did this come from? So there is a theory of Big Bang, Big Crunch, Big Bang, which within the science, it's not I'm making it up or Venerable Geshe-la is making it up. There are scientists who propose this with some evidence, but it's not mainstream, right? Then questions can be asked that why at a certain time the Big Bang happened? How at that time this material knew that it had to explode? Why life evolved in a certain way? Of course, what evolution theory is saying, I'm not saying it's incorrect, but you go deeper into questions, and then you will not find answers. Then the basic framework remains cause and effect. So if there's an effect right now, we are exploring this effect came into being how, they should have been the preceding cause, right? So if we keep saying it's random, then it doesn't make sense. And then another wonderful example like Geshe-la gives is like how we humans have the kind of body we have. Like for example, he gives an example of the blood, right? The blood doesn't clot inside our body, but if there's a scratch or something, the blood starts oozing out, and then it starts clotting. Of course, there are very rare clotting disorders that people have, and those are fatal in many people, but in general in humans, right? So this is a very complex body that we have, if you think through. At a cellular level, if you think through, like all the electrolytes that we have calcium, magnesium, we have sodium, potassium, we have all these elements in a cell. And even one of them goes off by a few points, in micro milligrams or milligrams, the whole balance of the body can go haywire. Just little bit, if it just goes haywire. So it's so complex, right? So how is this complex body that arose, right? How is this complex body that arose over like millions of years, right? How life evolved from unicellular. So if you keep asking questions, why, science will explain to some extent, but beyond that, you may not have answers, right? So this is the one of the way Geshe-la is saying that if you use a little inquisitive mind, and you don't have to be very intelligent, even a normal person, or even if you are intelligent, you don't have to go so deep into it, right? You ask these questions, why, so then you will get stuck at one point, and then you can take two approaches. One approach is randomness. Oh, it was random at one stage. Why at a certain stage certain apes became humans? Only certain apes became humans. Why? right? So these kind of questions we can ask from the external world, and then from the internal world also we can ask. Like for example, during, let's say, such a big epidemic like COVID, why certain people developed such excessive fear? And for some people it was okay, yeah, there's a problem, I stay at home, lockdown, I'll manage. And for some people the fear was excessive. So our experiences based on similar external stimulus, our experiences are different. Why? What is the cause and effect for that? Right? If you explore it like that, and then you would come up with somewhere you get stuck, and then you can't explain perfectly with a very gross level of cause and effect. And then Geshe also brings entropy theory and randomness. If people are interested in entropy theory, right? So the disorderliness kind of increases. Then why this human body is so orderly? This is the question. Over a period of time, from an entropy point of view, the disorderliness should have increased. Why? Then probably some scientists can say it's random. That doesn't make sense. Randomness and cause and effect, they are like contradictory. You can't say it's random and cause and effect. They're contradictory, right? So, and then Gishla is going into what karma is, and before that, he did a quick revision of the 5 omnipresent mental factors, which I hope we remember. I've listed them the way they are listed in standard text: feeling, discrimination, intention, contact, and attention. This is the way they are listed in standard text. But if you remember in this recording also, and in Buddhist psychology, Venerable Geshe very clearly explained the order of explanation. Order of explanation is how that first we get contact with the object. We get a contact with the object, and then we pay attention to it, and then we discriminate what the object is. And based on our discrimination, we have a feeling. Now, here, feeling is not something we use the feeling word in day to day. Oh, I feel like having a cup of coffee. Oh, I feel like going for a walk. Oh, I feel like talking to a friend. Oh, I feel like, going for a movie. No, here the feeling is a very specific. There are only 3 types of feeling here. In a technical sense, one can have a pleasant feeling, unpleasant feeling, or a neutral feeling. If the feeling is pleasant, you are, for an unrealized being, the mind is pulled towards the object. I like it. I want it. I want to partake in it. If the feeling is unpleasant, you want to push it away. I don't like it. A neutral feeling, yeah, okay, big deal, right? So that's how this is quite a fundamental way, and this is such a, if you get a hang of this, this is the basic framework of a mind. Based on it, if you remember, we covered in the Bodhisattva class many times that how we can change our feeling by changing the discrimination. And this is where, the Buddha laid so much of emphasis on the cognitive side of the mind in our teachings, right? And all the teachings that we are studying, Buddha laid. Why? Because it's something that, if you remember, one of the verses that we recite during prayers is, Buddha does not wash negativities of being. Buddha does not pick suffering of beings, like picking suffering through his hands. Buddha cannot transfer his realizations to beings. It is through teaching of suchness that beings are liberated. Right? So how you discriminate, how I discriminate, it's in my hand. It's in your hand. Buddha can't do anything. If Buddha could, he could bless us and say, okay, now you can discriminate, and now you can discriminate how ultimate reality is. No need to do anything. That's not possible. Now, as an example, I can give, let's say somebody is like dreaming. You are there awake, and you can see this person is having a horrible nightmare. You can't see this person's nightmare. So this person is like sweating, and from the expression, you can feel the person is like going through a horrible time in the nightmare. Right? And it's so deep into the nightmare that the person's ear consciousness is close to zero. Not zero, but close to zero. And then you're shouting, hey, wake up. You're just dreaming. hey, wake up, you're just dreaming. And person has no idea. Person has no idea that you're saying anything. Right? The person's mind creates the nightmare. The person feels horrible, and somebody outside the dream trying to tell, the person cannot figure it out. The person is stuck in the nightmare. So similarly, the discrimination part is how we study all these studies, that we're coming into contact and attention, like Bodhicitta teachings, the Four Seals teachings, the Four Noble Truths, how we can change our discrimination to change our feeling. All these are very precious teachings. And we have to apply, like we have a prescription from the doctor, we have to apply. If we don't apply, we don't get the benefit. So this is what Geshe-la revised. And in this, the 5 omnipresent mental factors, the intention. Next slide, please. The intention is what is accepted by all Buddhist schools to be karma. Okay, what is karma? The mental intention is accepted by all Buddhist schools. Now, if you remember the schools, I'll repeat again: Vaibhashika, Sautantrika, Chittamatra, and Madhyamika. And within Madhyamika, there are 2 further divisions: Swatantrika Madhyamika and Prasangika Madhyamika. Within Madhyamika, Madhyamika is the middle way school. Okay, so we will repeat this often. For some of you, it may be that you're hearing again the school names, you heard it earlier, it went out of your memory. No problem. This is how we keep revising. Okay, so the lowest school in terms of sophistication is Vaibhashika, and the highest school in terms of the sophistication of explaining everything is Prasangika. So very interestingly, for both Prasangika and Vaibhashika, they also say karma, you can include mental intention. But for the physical and verbal action, like right now I'm speaking, right? So in my mind, I was like, okay, I have to take the review class. So the intention is there to review class. But if I leave it at the mental level, it's mental level, but I have to speak. So when I'm speaking, I'm making a verbal action, right? So right now I'm making my hand gestures. This is also a physical action. Let's say somebody is doing prostrations to a Buddha, to a realized being, to a Buddha statue, right? So Vaibhashika and Prasangika will say, yes, during this prostration, what is karma? Let's say, if you ask, during this prostration. So all other schools besides these 2, Prasangika and Vaibhashika, that we will only consider the mental intention. That is karma. That is what is karma. Rest, we don't consider anything. But Vaibhashika and Prasangika say, okay, the mental intention is there, but the physical action is also there. And if somebody is speaking, the verbal action is also there. That is also included in karma. Okay. So that is kind of the technical side of it, right? And in general, what is karma? Karma can be translated as action. So, of course, when we study karma the way we are doing in this class, so systematically, we'll study a lot of things. But in general, we can say, yeah, if I have a headache and I can take a headache medicine, then my headache goes away. So brightening of a headache was a negative karma because whatever we'll study, but then I also have positive karma because I can get access to a medicine and get rid of my headache. Right? So sometimes we can make it very complicated. It's all karma, right? And that is one of the misconception. Like one of the misconception can be that, let's say, for example, you have a friend and somebody unwell, and you can take this friend, you can offer your help, I'll take you to the hospital, right? And then I'm creating 2 scenarios, just theoretical scenarios. One, oh, it's his karma, he's fallen ill, what can you do? He has to suffer, this is one option. The other option is, okay, he's fallen ill, and then if he gets proper medical help, timely help, proper help, then he'll recover or she will recover, right? So I can help. This is also, so the misconception is that karma is like kind of definite, and then okay, whatever happens, you cannot do anything about it. This is one misconception. The other misconception, like I said, if you come from like a background where you say, oh, what is this karma? I don't believe in it. What is this? How can this operate like lifetimes to lifetimes? It doesn't make sense. So this is also another misconception. One, considering not the nuances of karma, how multiple actions can take place together. One action can cancel another. Like headache is a ripening of one action, but taking medicine is another action. They can cancel each other, right? So so those are misconceptions, right? So and then in the class, where Geshe-la mentions that in some cases one karma can give rise to multiple results, right? For example, if we have like an apple seed or a mango seed and we plant a tree and we properly take care of it, then in a few years this tree starts giving so many fruits. So one action can give many fruits. In our physical world we can see it. So why not for karma? Quite possible. Okay. So and then so one has to be very careful, specifically negative karmas, and then we see our own life. In this case, some cases even one karma can give rise to multiple results. Sometimes we have repetitive kind of obstacles that we face. Repetitive. Like you have a problem in office, you solve it, and then 2 months later, similar problem comes. You solve it, then another problem comes, right? And then on the positive side, like for some people, I've seen uh, they like they buy some kind of or like one of my somebody in the family side, like you buy something and there's a free gift. So this person, I don't know, somehow keeps getting these free gifts. He goes to the mall, there's like a lucky dip, and he always gets something. So this is very strange. And like I jokingly say that I go with you, we both go together. I never get it. You always get it. Right? So this is also because in his previous lives he probably did a lot of generosities coming back. Right? So it could be possible that one karma and then giving rise to multiple results. Okay. So then I think two basic principles. This is like the basic axioms, the point number 9. Two basic principles related to karma. What are they? The karma one has accumulated will never go waste. Number one. Number two, one will not experience the result of karma which one did not accumulate. Right? So, so let me repeat this. The karma one has accumulated will never go waste. It doesn't mean the first one doesn't mean that, like we'll learn later, I mean, immediately later. It doesn't mean that, okay, let's say, let's take an example of a negative karma. Somebody, for example, did not know about karma and engaged in some kind of killing. Cockroaches, mosquitoes, things like that, right? And then we learn this, the karma one is accumulated will never go waste. Then we can get very scared. What? I've engaged in so much of killing, right? Now I know, now I need to be careful. But before I did not know. And that is no alibi in terms of working on this karma. One can purify that. One can develop, and we'll see later how one can purify, and all karmas can be purified. It depends on how powerfully the person is engaged in purification. Like, for example, Jetsun Milarepa, if you've heard the story, the great Tibetan, sage, who became Buddha in one lifetime. And before he became a Buddha, he had engaged in human killing. And then he developed severe regret, right? Severe regret. And then he, of course, had great merit to meet a great teacher who guided him. And then he worked really, really hard in that lifetime. And then he became a Buddha, right? Okay. And then we've heard the story of Angulimal. Angulimal literally translates, the finger collector or maker of the finger necklace, something like that, if I translate. So this person was like a serial murderer during Buddha's time. And one of the teacher had misguided him that if you kill 1,000 people and collect a finger and make a like a necklace out of it, out of the fingers of the killed people, when you reach 1,000, you will attain like a very high level of spiritual realization. So under the misguidance of teacher, he killed 9999 people, 999 people. And then he could not find anybody. So he was about to kill his own mother, the 1,000th person. He thought that's the only way. And then this was during Buddha's time, and Buddha had a great karmic connection with Angurimal, and he intervened. And then he becomes a disciple of Buddha. And then that very lifetime, he becomes an arat. Arat is somebody who gets rid of his self-grasping ignorance or her self-grasping completely. So after making like 999 murders, still this person was able to achieve this level of spiritual realization in that very lifetime. So we have to remember that the karma that one has accumulated will never go waste. Of course, to purify, you need the karma. You need the accumulated karma. So it doesn't go waste if you purify. The purification process is purifying this karma. Right? So that's the way it is, right? So one will not experience the result. So it's not possible that you, me, will experience any kind of result, which we did not accumulate. So right now, I hope nobody's having any unpleasant feeling. Either we are having a pleasant feeling or a neutral feeling. So if you're having a pleasant feeling, then necessarily this is a ripening of a positive karma right now. Okay. So one cannot experience the result of karma which one did not accumulate. That's not possible. Okay. So these are the two basic axioms or basic principles related to karma. In this presentation and these two classes that I'm trying to review, Venerable Geshe-la covers karma from various different angles. So you will see same thing presented with various different classification, which makes it very good. If you're trying to know any topic from various angles, then your knowledge expands and you feel more confident about it. Okay. And then on the karma that one has accumulated, we can take example of a positive karma and how it can get nullified. Right? So, for example, somebody does generosity, right? So generosity with a good heart, with good motivation, somebody's accumulated good karma. Then anger or regret over it, both, will nullify it. Oh, why did I give money to that person? He did not deserve it. She did not deserve it. You gave the money, and after that, you deeply regret it. So regretting over virtuous actions or getting angry, or disbelieving in efficacy of law of karma, one actually, nullifies the virtuous karmas that one has done. And then probably the most dangerous is disbelieving in the law of karma. There, the mind becomes, foolishly courageous to engage in non-virtuous karma. Foolishly. Oh, it doesn't, what difference is it? Okay, I'm at a traffic junction. There's a traffic signal and the signal is red. So if there's a traffic cop standing, then I'll obey the red light. Else I'll jump it. Who's seeing it? Of course, I'm talking with you, don't have cameras, etc. Who's seeing it? Right? Then legally, probably nobody's seeing it. From a law of karma, you're accumulating something negative for sure. Right? So those are small things, but some karmas, like we'll see, what makes a karma heavy, what makes a karma not so heavy. But again, the karma that one has accumulated will never go waste. We can see from the both sides. Somebody does negative karma, you can purify. Somebody does positive karma, not necessary that you will get the full result of it. Right? So this reminds me of a story that I heard as a child, and this is not coming from the Buddhist story. This is probably from some Hindu text, but again related to karma. Very nice story. I don't know whether true or not, but at least the lesson is quite good. So there were two brothers, and these two brothers are adults. one brother was a very naughty one, always doing mischievous things and non-virtuous things right from childhood. And the other brother was supposed to be, he was a very virtuous man, always doing the right thing, very mindful of his actions, very mindful of his speech, very mindful of his thoughts, very, very upright person, sincere person. So they're walking in the jungle, and this, the nicer brother, he somehow, his one of the foot, there's a thorn which pierces his foot, so he gets injured, and he sits on a rock, and he removes the thorn, and he's trying to like, nurse it. And the naughty brother, he keeps walking, and his foot hits like a pot, and the pot like falls, and it's like full of gold coins and diamonds and all kinds of jewels, right? And there's a sage passing by where this incident happens. So this upright brother, the nice brother, he asks the sage that, I don't understand this, that throughout my life I've seen it, that I get into trouble like this, and this my brother, he does all kinds of wrong things, yet these kind of nice things keep happening to him. So this sage says that, okay, when you were both born, at that time, if everything was like that, the way you were born, everything remained like that, then today you should have died because of your negative karma of your past life. And this other brother of yours should have become a king today based on his karma, the way he was born. But what is happening today? Because he kept accumulating negative karma in this life, instead of becoming a king, he gets just a small pot of jewels and everything. And instead of you dying, you just get like a foot injury, which you'll be fine in 2-3 days. So because of your being a virtuous man this life, you purified a lot of your negative karma, which you carried from your past life when you were born. And your brother, the naughty brother, he had a lot of positive karma from his past life. Because of his negative karma of this life, it's got nullified, and he just creates a pot of gold coins and jewels and things like that. So I really like this story, right? That it gives you that yes, law of karma works, but at the same time, there is a lot that I can do from my side. There's a lot I can do from my side, right? So, so this point is very important. Karma can get nullified or purified, and there are degrees to it. Like I mentioned, Jetson Miller rapper, he was so much into purification, 100% into it. And hence he was able to become Buddha in that very lifetime. Right? And somebody does purification with not so much of intensity, not so much of intent, then the purification will be there, but not so much. Right? So it depends on the individual. Okay. Right. So I also mentioned about the potential misconceptions related to karma. Like I said, two things. One, disbelieving. Or just blaming everything on the karma. Oh, you have to apply for a job, and then you have to work hard really for your interview, but then you say, oh, what should I do? It's my karma, I will not get the job, and you don't put the necessary causes for it, and then you blame karma. If somebody wants a healthy body, then they have to take care of their diet, sleep, exercises, and then you blame karma. Oh, I don't have a healthy body, but you're not doing the right actions. Right? And of course, after doing right action, somebody can get ill or get some kind of a disease. That's a different thing. But in a general scenario, I'm saying, right? So that is one misconception. And then, like I said, not believing in it, that's also a misconception, right? And then I will also mention there are some traditions like in India I've come across where, of course, I don't want to demean other traditions, but I've come across people. Maybe the tradition, the teachers are good, but these people are telling, so it's people's understanding, where they believe that, okay, that we have our guru. When there's a negative karma, he or she will take care of me. They very firmly believe in it. And then any negative karma happens, my guru will take care of it. I should just enjoy my life. Nothing to worry about karma. That's a huge misconception. You keep doing negative karma, and then you say that, okay, there's some protector who will protect me. That's a very dangerous point of view, extremely dangerous, I'll see. Right? They may have been lucky that they are praying to this guru and something negative in their life gets reduced. But I can, just using my inferential cognition, I can say, it's extremely dangerous, I would say. So that's also one misconception. Gishla did not mention. I'm just sharing that I know such people, who speak about this with sense of pride. I don't have to worry. I'll recite some mantras and I'll be protected. I'll just make some prayers to my guru will protect me. No, you have been lucky a few times, it won't happen. Okay, so one has to kind of karma. One of the things is that I am the doer, I am the experience of my actions. The ownership comes to you. Can be a little scary for people, but can be very liberating and can be a great cause for one not to engage into further negativities. Like I remember in one of the books by His Holiness, I think it was by, I don't remember which book, but the Chinese Communist Party invasion into Tibet, and there were a couple of nuns who escaped Tibet, and I think in India, and they were sharing their story that how they were tortured and humiliated in the jail, and there were tears in their eyes when they were, describing their experience. But then, very calmly, they said, it was our karma. What can we do? When the right thing happens, we have to accept it, right? Which is very powerful. What happens for most people in such situation? The blame goes to the perpetrator, or we become a sorry figure. Why me? So if you are practicing bodhicitta, or you're trying to practice bodhicitta, and this thought comes to you, why me? So indirectly, you're saying that somebody else should have suffered, isn't it? When this thought comes that why me, then if you think little bit, what are you saying when you say why me? You're saying it's okay if it happens to others. Why me? Right? It's like, okay, others suffer, I should not suffer. This is a very gross level self-centered attitude. Of course, I'm not judging anybody, but this is the natural thought process, which is the untrained mind. So either you blame or you become a sorry figure. And here, the nuns, what they're doing, yes, it happened. I felt very sad. It was excruciating pain. Yet, because of acceptance of this subtle reality of karma, it gives them acceptance. And then all this extra commentary, why me, blame, and these are all negative karmas that we're creating, fresh negative karmas. That will stop. Okay. All right. So these are potential misconceptions. So we have to check, and these are some which, Ishla mentioned the class. I added one more, but these are just some of them. But of course, we check ourselves as we go along. It's not that today we learn and suddenly we comply to the complete law of karma. No, it will take time because we are all ignorant, and we have to learn these things and we have to apply in our life. That's how it goes. Yeah. Okay. Next slide, please. Nekula, you there? Thank you. So, and one of the classification, which is another very important classification, is definite karma and uncertain karma. Right? And Gisha is a very beautiful example that, okay, let's say there is somebody standing, in front of a toy train. Like we may have seen a toy train that works on a battery or a remote made of plastic parts, a small toy train. So if the toy train in front of it, there's a toddler, right? Or I can say I myself is standing in front of the toy train, and toy train comes close to me, I can literally stop the toy train just with my hand and nothing will happen. But let's say if I'm standing in front of a real train, that to a cargo train, and then tons and tons of cargo in it, just to stop the train with the most powerful brakes also, it will take few kilometers. I have no chance with my bare hands to stop that train. No chance whatsoever. Right? So what is the difference? One, it's like a very powerful karma and the opposing force is very weak. And uncertain karmas are something that you have pretty much, you decide and you can overcome it. Like most cases, you don't have anybody doesn't have a severe illness. The headache example is very good, let's say. And you're not very averse to taking medicines. You have a headache. Like myself, usually if I get a headache once in a while, I just take a nap, 20-minute, 30-minute nap. And usually 8 out of 10 times my headache goes away. I don't need a tablet. Right? For some people, they'll say, I have a headache, I'll just take a cup of coffee. For some people, maybe whatever the trigger is, maybe it's acidity or something, they'll say take an antacid. For some people, they take a headache medicine. Right? So somebody is having a headache, you have so many antidotes to the headache. It's kind of an uncertain karma. Not necessary that headache will last for, like, let's say 4 hours. You get a headache, within half an hour, you can do something about it. So it's an uncertain karma. Right? So some are definite karma, and most of us, the karmas that we experience are uncertain. Right? So this is very, very important. Now, how do you decide? That can be a secondary question. Which karma is definite, which karma is uncertain? And a simple thing would be that, use your logical abilities, use your reasoning, and analyze the situation, pros and cons. If you can do something, try something about it. Right? So that is one way of seeing definite karma and uncertain karma. Right? So many, many very powerful karmas. For example, if I say, the other way also can be when, let me think of an example which is like from day-to-day life, which would be very convincing. So, okay, of course, it's a slightly negative example, but let's say, somebody takes some kind of a poison, let's say cyanide or something, let's say accidentally, not intentionally, to make it less negative karma. Then once that substance of cyanide goes into a human body, just in few seconds, the effect starts happening. Right? If that effect starts happening, you can't do anything about it at that stage. Right? So if you think from that perspective, before taking the cyanide, somebody can stop it, it's uncertain. But once it goes into the body and the body started digesting it in the bloodstream, very little you can do. It's a very powerful poison for the human body. Right? Or, for example, let's say before somebody gets, I don't know if you guys had any injury whatsoever. Most likely all of us had some injury or the other. When we have a fall, when we bump our hand or feet against something, we can get a swelling. There's a internal swelling. The tissue damage will cause the body to swell a little bit and you have a pain. And if there is a swelling, just before the body swells, the pain you can do something. Moment it swells, you can't do. The pain becomes like a definite karma. Right? If somebody does not have a neurological disorder, that some people can have neurological disorder where they don't experience pain, that's very rare. For most of us, we have an injury and the swelling, because of the swelling, the nerves get compressed and you start feeling pain. And it's a natural body's reaction that if you have pain, you will not move that body part, you want to rest. It's a very natural, from an evolution perspective, it's a nice thing to have in the body, because of the pain, you will notice it, and because of it, you will, protect it, not make movements around it. So you can see it from that perspective. But then this could be an example of definite and uncertain karma, right? So certain illnesses, moment they manifest in the body, and some of them can be quite huge, medical bills, a lot of other things. But before they manifest in the body, if you purify, those are uncertain karmas. But once you get the illness, and of course, if it's you go to a medical doctor or whoever you're consulting, and it's curable, you still have to go through the process. Then it becomes a definite karma in terms of the suffering that you are having because of the illness, right? And then your antidote, if it's very powerful, then of course you will get cured, right? So this is the way you can look at it: definite karma, uncertain karma, and this is something that we have to think about. We have to think about in our day-to-day experiences, right? So the misconception is that everything is a definite karma. Karma means, yeah, I did action, now nothing can be done, and then just blaming everything on the karma. Then we become very inactive people. There is a role of our free will that we can think about it. We are thinking beings. Being human is born as a human is a great opportunity that we can develop our thinking even further. And positive thinking which is connected with reality and for our long-term happiness. That's a great human potential that we have, right? Okay. So, and then the other one is like types of results of karma. Okay. So types of results of karma, three types Gishla mentioned. In some text, you will have four, but here Gishla is presenting three: environmental result, habitual result, and experiential result. In the next class, Gishla covers the fourth one, which is like the projecting karma. Projecting karma is also a type of a result, which we'll cover in the next class, this review class C26. Gishla mentions that. Okay. So here, environmental result. Environmental result. Many of you may have seen yourself or at least heard of people like child prodigies, right? For example, I think Mozart at a very young age knew about music. There are athletes, there are sports people. If you go into their biographies, then you know, right, that at a very young age they displayed tremendous skill in their area. They were really very, very good. Now, for example, like in tennis, Roger Federer, or I think if you follow cricket, many Indians follow. There are many cricketers. If you see their biography, there are many soccer players. If you see their biography, at a very young age, they displayed those tremendous skills, right? So why is that, a certain person, with that young age is born in such an environment where some parents or somebody notices their skill and gives them the opportunity, the right environment to be a musician or to be a sports person. You need the environment also. It's not that I display the skill, right? And there are certain like actresses, if you see their biography, right from childhood, they say, I was not interested in studies, I'm just interested in acting. Fantastic singers, they would say that at a very young age, they would sing. Music was something that automatically. Now, you have a kid who is born in a very poor family. We know like poverty still it's present on this planet Earth, and there's so many countries, so many billions of people still are poor. Very difficult for them even to manage like 2 meals a day or 3 meals a day, right? Easily a billion plus out of 8 billion, right? A few years ago, I think I read it was like 700 million something. So, and that time the population was less. So I'm pretty sure if we do the research, then people below poverty must be close to a billion, right? So whatever the number, we are not debating that, but it's a huge number. So this kid has similar ability in terms of the potential, but is born in a very poor family. Do you think the parents or whoever is taking care of the kid will say, okay, I'll buy you a piano, I'll buy you a guitar, I'll buy you a football, a soccer ball, I'll take you to practice? No. They're saying we don't even have enough money for the food. So the environmental result is so important, the point I'm saying. And why is that some people are born in that environment and other people are born in other environment? If you ask these kind of questions, what is the cause for it? Okay, one theory can be it's random. And then somebody can say, okay, in the physical world, in our experiences, in the physical world, you can account for everything through cause and effect. You may not be able to explain it precisely right now, but you can account for it. So how come for this particular thing, one has to say it's random, and for other things, it has to be cause and effect? Doesn't make sense, right? So this environmental result, I think we should not underestimate it, the kind of environment we are born with, right? For example, yesterday only or day before yesterday, I think if there are anybody from Australia probably knows, I think there's an area in Australia, I read it in the news, Alice Spring. There, it's I think somewhere in the northern Australia, the local authorities have put a curfew for kids in the night. Can you believe that? After a certain like 8 p.m. to 8 a.m., kids are uh, not allowed to go out. Why? They are involved in huge amount of like heinous crimes. They're murdering people, they're breaking into homes, stealing things. Why? Because I think they belong to the traditional aborigines, the traditional people of Australia. So there, I think their original land has been taken. It's a very complex problem. I think I read it on bbc.com, if I'm not mistaken. And a couple of news sites I go to, I'm forgetting the news source, but I read that 2-3 days ago. So the reporter was reporting this, said it's a very complex problem. This is a knee-jerk reaction from the authorities. These kids, basically, they used to stay in forest, and they were like traditional tribes. All these forests have been taken, and they begin very small land, so they are cramped into like very very populated areas. No education, and parents are not educated. There's a huge problem of alcohol. There are alcoholic parents, and they're sexually abused, they're physically abused, these children. So if they are basically, there's a curfew, then you are endangering these kids, because these kids are escaping all that, physical violence, sexual violence, and they've grown up without love and care. So they are like this, they're stealing things, they're breaking into homes, they're killing each other. It's a very complex problem. And moment I read it, the first thing that came to my thought was like, okay, it's because of the environment. Why these kids are born there and I was not born there? It's purely environment. Imagine you being growing up in such a family, no love and care, all elders in the family, specifically males, you're afraid of them, you're being raped, you're being physically hurt. What will you become if you're a 16-year-old, 17-year-old? You grow up like this. I will also become like that, right? It's very sad, but this is how cause and effect works. So sometimes such fundamental things like environment where we are born in can be very, very scary, right? Okay. And then the second one, which is also a very positive side to it and a scary side to it, which is the habitual result. Habitual result. Okay. So this is this. I think I'd like to spend some time. So if you, let's say, if you have some kind of a short temper, right? If you have a nature short temper, you feel frustrated and you go to a counselor, then often the counselor says you need to express it because of your anger. Things are going haywire. You need to express it. But they don't think about this, which I'm going to ask this question that, okay, uh, if I, whatever my trigger right now today, let's say I'm a short tempered person and I have a certain trigger, right? That beyond this, if this happens, then usually my mind reacts in a negative way, right? Let's say out of 10, 1 out of 10, the trigger is at 7 and above, I get angry, right? If I get angry like this in few months time, let's say, will it be the trigger goes to 8, then I get angry? Or will it be the trigger goes to 6, the trigger is going lower, and still I'll get angry? Let's say today I repeat my scenario, and then I would want some, responses. People can raise hand and share their views. So there's a person who's short-tempered, and today a situation is there where you have a situation where at a trigger point on a scale of 1 to 10, if the trigger is 7, then the person gets angry. And below 7, today the person doesn't get angry, can maintain a patient mind. It's okay, no big deal, like this. So the person keeps getting angry at 7 today, tomorrow, 3 months, 6 months, 7 months, let's say after 7, 8 months, let's say 8 months. Will the trigger remain 7 or will the trigger go to 6? At 6 also this person will become angry. So option at 6 the person will become angry, will remain 7, or will remain at come to 8. Automatically the trigger goes higher, then the person gets angry. What do you think? Anyone? This is related to habitual result, the habit patterns. Anyone? What do you think? Anyone? You can raise your hand, virtual hands or physical hands. Yes, Christine B. Please go ahead. What do you think?
Hello, Dipeshla. I think it's 6.
Okay. Thank you, Christina. Christina says 6. Anybody else? What do you think? Is there anybody who thinks that at 8 automatically the person's trigger will change to 8? Anybody? No? Okay. Anybody who thinks that will remain at 7? You can just raise your hand if you think that will remain 7. No? I think I yes, Teresala. Teresala? Go ahead, Teresala. You think it will remain at 7? You're muted, Teresala. You'll have to unmute. Teresala? Yeah.
I'm not sure I can tell you why. I just feel that it would remain at 7.
Okay. So Teresala is a very experienced person. The age group she belongs to, I think, where you calm down naturally. So I can see that. So that is one of the reasons she thinks like that, right? That you've seen so much of life, you say, yeah, it's okay. And that's why I think she's not giving a reason. It's naturally saying that, right? Okay. All right. So okay. So this is extremely important. The habitual pattern. Yeah, Ivanla. Ivanla is raising virtual hand. Ivanla, go ahead, Ivanla.
Hello, Dipeshla. I'm not sure. Just analogy comes to my head that, like in sports, if I do something, I can endure more. So maybe it become an 8. It doesn't seem correct for this example, but it's just what came to my head.
Well, in sports, you're trying to improve. That's why you can endure. So what you're saying is correct. But using the same analogy, I would say you're saying because in sports, you're training yourself to be better. So in the same analogy, you're training yourself to become angry better. Okay.
Yeah.
So it should be not 8. It should be what Christine is saying, using your reason, right? Because you're becoming better. You are habituating yourself. You're training yourself. Okay, I need to get angry. Of course, not with intention, but naturally. Some people will say, I'm naturally, this irritates me a lot, right? So what Ivanla says, I 100% agree, right? But I think we just have to flip it because you're training to become angry, right? Okay. So this is the habitual result. This is what the counselors, and I like to tell a funny story. Again, I don't know if there are people from Japan in our course, if you're listening. I used to work in an office whose headquarters was in Japan. So I never traveled to Japan, but some of my colleagues went to Japan. So one of my colleagues, a very good friend of mine, not in touch with him, but anyway, these days. But anyway, so he went to Japan and he came back and he was sharing his experience. So in Japan, he went to a particular in Tokyo. I think he went to Tokyo, if I'm not mistaken. There was a bar that in the evening he went, and in this bar, you could carry a photo. This I'm saying about maybe 25 years ago, old story, right? So it may not be existent today, but something which is about 25, 26 years old, right? So you go to a bar, you take a photograph, and they give you like a dozen or 2 dozen, ceramic plates, white plates, and you give a photograph. They'll print a photograph on all these 2 dozen plates. Let's say 24, 2 dozen plates. And there was a room. You would be given these two dozen plates, and you can throw the plate and smash it on the wall. So basically, he said that most people there in, I don't know how the culture is, work culture, the boss was like, the extended working hours, like 12 hours, 14 hours at that time in the company that I was working, the headquarters. He was saying that most of his colleagues which went, they gave a photograph of their own boss. And they smashed all these 24 plates, whatever, 2 dozen, 3 dozen. Of course, this bar or restaurant must be charging. If you feel too angry, I want 48 plates. Of course, they will oblige. You have 48 plates, they will charge you more. What's the big deal? Right? Because you get angry, there is a business model there, right? So this colleague of mine was reporting that this was very popular. You, after work, you go for a drink or whatever. That's the way to socialize. You go and eat, and then first you buy these plates, you smash them, and then you feel, wow, my boss, he deserves it, right? So this is the same thing Ivanla is saying, right? So you're practicing to become better. You're practicing to become better in getting angry, right? So I'm sharing a funny story, but it's a very serious matter, right? And then once Venerable Geshe-la finishes the meditation, we will learn the techniques. But right now, we'll just cover that more we engage in anything, we are habituating ourselves. More we habituate, easier it becomes. And it applies to both anger and compassion. Compassion on the positive side, right? You become generous and you get into the habit, it becomes easier. It becomes easier, right? So in terms of ripening, in terms of the results of karma, one is environmental, and the one we're talking about habitual. Like in Bodhicharya Avtara, the Guide to Bodhisattva's Way of Life by Bodhisattva Shantideva, I think in one of the, I'm forgetting the chapter, but he says this: there is nothing in this world which cannot become easy by habituation. Nothing. Right? So it depends on our foresight, how much long term we think, and how wise our approach is. If you remember when we started NCC2 course, Geshe-la said there are 2 agendas: be kind to yourself and be wisely kind to yourself. These are the 2 agendas, right? So it depends. If somebody is very, very short-term viewed and says, oh yeah, I get angry, I get results. Fine. To some extent, anger will give you the energy, but it has huge side effects, number one. And long-term effects, if you take into consideration, it's only side effects, nothing else, nothing positive, if you consider the long term, right? So, if you are a kind of an activist, like an animal activist, human rights activist, or any kind of activist, or you support any kind of activist, many times when we interact with activists, they say, how can you feel normal? One should get angry about this cause, right? So if you logically think, okay, you already have a problem. First, let's start with a simple premise that is there anybody who has not experienced anger? You can raise your hand. Is there anybody who says that I have never ever experienced anger? Okay, so everybody in some point of your life, you have experienced anger. So my second question is, while you're angry, are you happy? Or at least while you're angry, the feeling, we've learned 3: pleasant feeling, unpleasant feeling, and neutral feeling. These are only 3 possibilities. So did you have a pleasant feeling or a neutral feeling while you were angry? Right? So this is so obvious. This is a direct, I don't need to tell you. Buddha doesn't need to come and say that when you get angry, you are unhappy. You are having an unpleasant feeling. Right? So easy for me to say, but I still get angry. Right? So that is the admission that sometimes certain situations I do get irritable. But like Gishla says, that do not justify it. Don't say that this was correct response. If you say it's a correct response, then what Ivanla said will happen. You are getting better at it. There should be some opposite force. Okay, I got angry because of my bad habit. This is not the correct response. Right? This is not a correct, whatever situation you're facing. Then first of all, this anger, right? First of all, that okay, I myself during anger, I feel upset. And then depends on your intensity of anger. You can have physical manifestation of the anger. The physiology, the heartbeat can go up, your BP can go high, you can sweat, lots of things can happen. And then how long it remains, right? And guaranteed, if you do research in the medical science, with anger, the immunity goes down. Guaranteed, right? Just this life, your immunity will go down. Guaranteed, right? So you think about these points. So then, okay, whatever the situation was, somebody said something nasty. All right. Acknowledge that we are not saying that, okay, now I have to see everything is good. Then you're disconnected from the reality. The world is a very complicated phenomenon. People are very complicated. Relationships are very complicated. People's habits are very complicated. When such complications, two people meet, complications are bound to arise. So somebody said something, somebody said something nasty, then okay, my getting angry, are the words taken back? The words are not taken back. Just as an example, the words are not taken back. Did I feel hurt? Acknowledge it. Yes, I felt hurt. But my feeling hurt, how does the anger remove the hurt? Just have a logical dialogue with yourself, and at one stage you will say that anger is illogical. I wish I had more time and people could explain that I got angry at this situation, and we can analyze like each situation that we get angry. Right? So if you get angry because of your habit pattern, don't justify it. Don't say this was correct. That is the first step. And if you keep doing this, that okay, it was not correct, and then be wise. When you cool down, then ask yourself in a similar situation, how could I have handled it? Maybe, okay, if it was possible, then I could just step away and not react at all. Mentally, you will feel angry, but at least verbally, don't say anything. Right? And there could be many other approaches. Then you have to say that I have to face the situation tomorrow again. You can have close family relationship. You can have troubled relationship. You can have troubled relationship at work. Could be situations which you cannot avoid. Then you have to mentally just train yourself. That similar situation, maybe I could have used this label. It is not possible the other person was nasty without any input from your side. Not possible at all. You could have added maybe 1% from your side, 5% from your side. You have to also see from your own behavior, how did I add to that situation? Right? So that is something that we have to get conviction that anger is not a justified reaction. Why? Because I say, I want to be happy. And then I'm feeding into something that I acknowledge myself that it's an unpleasant feeling. Right? So this is rationality going. Rationality to translate into an emotional behavior takes a lot of time. This is one part of the meditation. So it doesn't go away. So I said it, and then tomorrow onwards, I also don't get angry. And if you have the same issue, you also not, it's not going to happen. You have to make effort. Okay, Levinda, let's share this slide. Almost 8 o'clock. Okay. So this is the habitual result. And then the experiential result, like I said, anger immediately experiential result is I feel unpleasant. Right? So sometimes, again, like I said, during COVID time, some people, similar external situation, they are not so upset. The experience side of it. Right? Again, like, similar situation, like, for example, in one of the teachings, somebody mentioned that there is a plane crash and there are hundreds of people who die. not necessary that everybody had the same experience of fear or same kind of experience. Right? The experiential results are quite different. Right? Some people, if you just interact with them, most of the time they're always smiling. They're always smiling. It's so nice, right? So they have this. Where is this coming from, right? And then some people, like, they have this. They've trained their mind that it's okay, it's okay. They don't worry too much, right? Because of the habit, but one is the experiential side that, whatever experience you had while doing the karma, this similar experience will result in terms of the result. One is the habit, one is the result. Right? So there's a difference between the two. So you have to also see that if I'm experiencing something right now, unpleasant feeling, then necessarily I created the unpleasant feeling in somebody. If I'm having a physical pain in my body, then necessarily I created physical pain in some sentient being. Okay? So this is something that we have to look into. Okay, like in the next slide. So what we're going to do, one of the reasons we did not release the recordings for this week is that this topic is quite big. Ishla covered in 2 classes. It was impossible for me to cover properly. So, of course, I will not be able to finish this presentation today. I'll carry forward this presentation to the next Monday class. We will start from where we left. And I'll also include what Gishla will teach tomorrow, in my review class. So that way, at least the idea is not to like, okay, I can just very quickly, Gishla said this, go through bullet points quite quickly. I could have finished in 45 minutes also. But then all these important points, which I feel will benefit more, then it's better that we try and cover it from that perspective. Okay. So what we will do is we will cover just this slide, and then maybe we will see if we reach the 4th point or not. So in the C26, Gishla quickly reviewed the previous class, so I don't need to because I'm reviewing both classes together. That's an advantage. And then this is another very important classification, which is accumulated and which is done. It's quite interesting also, right? This is quite interesting also, and then quite relieving also. So let's take an example. So we have all combination. One is accumulated on one side, one is done. So it is possible that some karma is done but not accumulated. Some karma is accumulated, not done. Accumulated and done, and neither. All 4 combination, let's see. Right? So let's take accumulated but not done. Accumulated but not done. So one example can be, let's say there is a group of terrorists, and these terrorists, they enter a room, and there's one particular head of the terrorist who is not part of that group. He's controlling them through either some satellite phones or somewhere sitting in some remote country. Right? And these terrorists actually don't have a choice. Let's say these are youngsters whose families have been kidnapped by some terrorist organization, will kill your family. You 3 people have to go and attack this particular building or something. You have to do it. Otherwise, we're going to kill your family. So these 3 youngsters, 18, 19-year-old, they are basically doing a negative karma, which is done. But mentally, their intention is, I don't want to do it. I don't want to kill anybody. But if I don't do it, my family will get killed. You see the difference? So there's a kingpin who's sitting somewhere remotely. He's not involved directly in killing. He's not shooting anybody. So he's not doing the karma, but he's accumulating this kingpin. And those 3 people who are actually doing the killing, they are doing the karma, but they are not accumulating it. Because in their mind, they're like, I don't have a choice. Right? Or the other example is in the same like terrorist type of thing. The terrorist puts a gun on the head of the child and asks the mother, slap your child hard, otherwise I'll kill your son. Right? So in this kind of example, the mother is hitting the child, the karma is done, but not accumulated. The mother is trying to protect the child by hitting. Right? So this is quite important. Accumulated, done. So accumulated will be based on the intention. Done would be based on the physical or the verbal, but the intention can be very different than what the action appears. Right? So you can think through many scenarios where such similar situations are there, where people are forced to do something they don't want. Many times it happens in our life. Many times, and I'm giving little extreme examples so that it becomes little vivid. In day-to-day life, it's not so extreme examples, right? So, for example, I think those are very very less number, like in Nalanda courses, very less number. But I know of one incident where one friend forced another friend, you also join, I'm joining, right? You also join. You join this course, I'm also joining. So just out of respect and love for the friend, the other friend joins. The friend is not too interested. Later on, the intention can change when they listen to the teachings and they say, yeah, this is beneficial, what they're talking, it makes sense. Then they start taking interest. But initially it's more like, somebody is forcing them, of course, out of love. And it's not like on a gunpoint. So these are also where out of love and affection, somebody says, you also join, I'm joining. Right? So is the person accumulating the karma who's just joining to like really learn these teachings, learn dharma? Initially, no. Later on, the mind can change. Right? So this is quite an important classification that you can think about, that how, and we spoke about the importance of habitual tendencies, which is very important. And then Geshe-la gave few examples to counter it, right? Which counter it. Like, for example, Geshe-la said that, sometimes, if I were to ask people, I don't know how many would remember all the 9 steps of equalizing and exchanging method, right? So some of you may not remember it, right? And then you decide that, okay, tomorrow morning I'll wake up and do the meditation. And then you have your hard copy of the Blaze, or you have some electronic device, your laptop, tablet, phone, and you've downloaded the PDF version of the Blaze. The Blaze has all the 9 steps. Or you can look at my review presentations, or you can look at transcript. There are so many sources where all the 9 steps are mentioned, right? And then the laziness kicks in. Yeah, I don't remember it. So tomorrow I'll not meditate. Maybe I'll do it like over the weekend. Geshe-la was giving that, do it right there. Small things, you build a habit, right? Do it sincerely. And then one of the attributes is being sincere is that what you say, do it. You build these small habits, in terms of habitual tendencies, right? If you remember in the Bodhisattva examples, that we can do some small things for other cherishing. Like you go in a retreat or a group environment and you're standing in the queue, and there are now you're pouring your tea or coffee, in your mug, and there's like a long queue, and you can see the tea is about to finish or the coffee is about to finish. So maybe instead of filling your whole cup, you can fill like 80% of it, 70% of it, and say, okay, 30% I'm taking less because there's a long queue. You can do it right there. And this is the habit of other cherishing, right? So we can build these habits of tendencies, and then we can watch our mind, how our mind is so habitual, right? And then if you notice mistakes, like in some of the classes, take it as a mirror. Okay, I learned this, and now I can see, okay, these are the areas of improvement. Don't, maybe a positive word is areas of improvement rather than saying that it's a mistake in me. These are the areas I can improve slightly, So laziness is one thing that we all can, reduce slightly. This is what Geshe-la was saying, that just do it, small things, and then it becomes a habit, right? So it really, it's quite good if you think like that. So I think we'll stop here. Importance of habitual tendencies. We'll continue C26 from point 4 in the next review class. So I think I'll invite some questions. Like you can unshare. So, if anybody has any questions, this is quite for some of you, it might be very interesting. For some of you, it may be overwhelming because it's a complicated topic, but it certainly has a lot of aspects. Yes, Ivanla. Go ahead, Ivanla. Question.
So
would like to go back to the part about why me that you mentioned. Yes. So if why me and not someone else, I understand why it's self-centered. But if it's why, if I focus on why, how is that self-centered? Not that people when say that they really want to know why, but yeah, I don't still see how it's self-centered.
Okay, that's a very good question. So there are two aspects what Ivanla is bringing. What I mentioned, why me, right? Usually Ivanla, like if you remember, we discussed two types of minds when we did Buddhist psychology, and before that also briefly we touched cognitive minds and affective minds. Right? So cognitive mind is something like, there are two groups of people. One group doesn't like the flower, one group likes the flower, and the object flower is presented. Both groups will say this is a flower. Then the second question, do you like it? Do you not like it? That's a secondary question. So cognitive mind mode is like an objective mind. You're keeping, loosely speaking, your emotions aside. Right? So when I give in the example, why me? I'm saying it in a very neutral tone. But if you interact with people, Ivanla, or even ourselves, like I also felt many points in my life when I was not exposed to these teachings, this very naturally arose. Why me? Very naturally, right? Because we are not given the information, right? So when it arose naturally in me, it was not like, okay, why me? I want to know why. Why me? This is the tone. Do you agree? Right? The person is what I said. We feel sorry for ourselves. Why me? When you feel sorry, it's not like the cognitive mind. It's a very strong affective mind. So you have to check yourself that when this question is arising, why me? Is it just focusing on the why part, which is the cognitive mind? Nothing wrong. We have to know, right? And a lot of things we will not know because the subtle workings of karma is quite complicated, right? We will know the general rules. For example, like I said, if I've had any kind of physical illnesses I've had many times, then it's like guaranteed that some physical harm I did in my past lives, that is right now, right? That is happening. So those are general. Then if you ask the next question, in which life, which sentient being, what karma you did, what were you thinking, what was the intensity of your karma, those are extremely hidden phenomena. Only a realized being will exactly point out, in this life you did this, like this, and then after doing you were rejoicing, right? So in one of the sutras or one of the stories, it mentioned Buddha in his previous life, one of the previous life when he was not a Buddha, he had a headache. And then he's just saying that there was some insect being killed by some other animal. And then he was a small kid and he was clapping. He was rejoicing and killing. And he said, just this few claps, they ripened as a karma. After so many lives, he got a headache. So we may not, like, this is karma accumulated, not done. Buddha in his one of the previous life, not killing the insect, but just rejoicing and killing by clapping. Right? So we know the general rules. Right? So why me part, if you're focusing on the why, then we will see in the presentation in the C26, there's a list of 10 non-virtuous karmas that we can relate to in terms of our experiences, the negative experience and non-virtuous. So I would agree with you, 100% agree with you. If your mind is just focusing on the why, it's a cognitive mind, nothing wrong. There is no self-centered attitude there. But you are the best person to check. Is the why me coming with the sorry, or is it just the pure inquisitive side? Right? My experience is people I've interacted myself, why me was quite a sorry tone, extremely sorry tone. Then necessarily, of course, this thought never came that when I'm saying why me, am I implying somebody else? And moment if you put a loved one, then if you love them, then you will say no, I don't want anybody else to suffer also. That also can come very naturally because you're opening up, right? The Buddha nature within us, we can open up. And yeah, it makes sense, right? But it's a very good question, Ivanna. Thank you. Okay. Any other question? Anybody else? Okay. All right. So we either people did not understand anything I said, or they understood everything I said. There are the two scenarios. So okay, whatever. I think it's a good thing, you know. So if you have questions, bring it up. And like I said, not necessary that the question has to be with the current class. If you're reflecting, if you're revising things, then probably you can, you know, bring up those questions also from the previous classes. It's fine. Okay, so tomorrow, yeah, Teresala. Go ahead, Teresala.
This is a question that plagues me all the time as a human being. And I always bring it back to karma, and I never know quite what to do. And that's the invasion of small ants in my kitchen, and then how to remove them without harm. And I always
Yeah.
bring that back to karma.
Yeah.
Can you?
Yeah,
Do you have any
absolutely. Absolutely. So these are extremely practical questions, and some of them can be very complicated, right? Very, very complicated, because now we learn that killing is non-virtuous, right? And you know, so I don't want to kill, and there are these ants which are coming. So one of the things that I have faced similar situation in my kitchen many times, many times, right? So of course, one of the thing is that practically I'll tell you is that you have to be observant and see where the ants are going. Of course, they're hungry, so they're going to the food, right? Don't go towards from where they're coming. Ants are very smart, right? So what I do is like, okay, let's say, you know, on the kitchen slab there was a food left over, we cleaned it and it fell on the floor. And specifically if something is sweet, sugary, then they sense it quite fast, right? So there's like a, let's say, few granules of sugar fallen on the floor, and you will see lots of ants come there, right? So you can gently, if you have like something which doesn't hurt them, like you have, you know, kind of a broom, right, which is very soft, you can just gently take it. And then this sugar particles, what I do is I go and put it outside in the balcony, right? And then after a few minutes, the ants disappear. I don't have to do anything. They're attracted by the scent of the food, right? So you take the food outside and leave it somewhere, wherever you are. You know, if you have a balcony or if you are on the ground floor, you have some backyard, just go and leave it there. And they'll automatically come there, right? So you have to choose the source, and then you can see from where they were coming. If you have some small holes in your doors or some places, then you have to plug those.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
So,
Yep.
so like I have like tiles in my kitchen, and it's a 20+-year-old. So the tiles in between, they have some chemical to paste it. And these red ants, they are very sharp. You know, we feel they're very small, but they can pierce through that hard material also. So I trace them that they're coming from that hole. Once I remove the food, and I say, okay, they're coming from them. Then I slowly clear that particular hole, and you have some, you know, whatever, you have white cement or some kind of material available. You can plug that hole, plug it. Then I'm doing two things. One, I'm taking away the food, then they naturally go towards the food. And from wherever they're coming, I just stop it. And of course, then, you know, you can also recite some mantras for them. You can also pray that, you know, I wish science was so evolved, my knowledge was so evolved that I can offer you food without I throwing you out. Literally, what are we doing? We're throwing them out. On one side, I say, may I become Buddha for all beings. All are like my mother sentient beings. Now these mothers are coming and I'm throwing them out. One has to be practical, right? So science is not so evolved. We are not so evolved that I could communicate with them. It is said that Buddha could very easily communicate with any being, be it like snakes, be it like insects. Buddha can communicate, right? So imagine, you can communicate and very gently tell them, listen, don't come to the kitchen. I've kept some food outside for you. It's more delicious. Just go there. And the problem is solved. But that's more like aspirational prayer. It's not going to happen, right? But that's our limitation as human, right? Lama Zopa Rinpoche in one of the teachings said this, that sometimes like we accidentally step on like ants, and you can see that they're injured, right? They're injured very badly. You see, there are no hospitals for insects. We have so many hospitals for humans. One of the teachings he said that, right? They also feel the pain. If I'm stepped on by such a huge creature who's like 100 times bigger than me on my foot, and my foot is completely crushed, how much pain I'll feel? How much pain I'll feel, right? If I have a little bit of injury, I'm bleeding, my family members will just like scream, let's go to the hospital. But for insects, we can't do anything. So we are not so evolved. That is also part of the equation, right? We are not so evolved. And of course, whatever things we have, food, our home, they're encroaching. They don't know that it's your property, right? Things like that. They don't know. It's for them. Wherever there's a scent of the food, they'll go there and they'll eat the food. So these are very complicated. And then if there are people who, are from that field, like who deal into insects, they've done PhD or they work in the lab, we should interact with them. We should learn from them. And if I want to be kind at the same time, want to protect myself, nothing wrong. It's knowledge is the key. That one should know that what they like, what food they like, what are their habits, and then how can I use that for controlling, my kitchen, keeping it neat and clean, and also not harming, like you're saying, right? Okay. All right.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, Christina, go ahead.
My question, a little bit connected with this question and answer, but I mostly wanted to know about humans. But insects can be in this situation too. So my question is, what if I don't like the person because of the past life? For example, he killed me. And my anger here is in this life is very small thing I do towards him, comparing what he did in the past life. So with an insects too can be.
Sure. So what you're saying is that if you know, okay, so hypothetically we'll have to say we don't know. Like Christina is saying that, okay, if she gets angry, little bit angry with somebody, and then theoretically she's saying that what if this person killed me in my past life, right? That's what you're saying, Christina, right? So compared to the killing, my anger is very small. The killing was a bigger karma, negative karma, versus the anger, also a negative karma, which is a smaller negative karma. Agreed, right? That's what you're saying?
Yes, I mean, not that I'm doing like it's not affecting my karma. I mean, it's like this circle of karma. So I'm like closing it.
Yeah, okay. So now, first of all, whatever in general, whatever is the cause is also an effect in general. For example, you as a Christine law today, right now, 1st April, you are a result of yesterday's Christine law. And you, today's Christine law, are a cause for tomorrow's Christine law. So you are both right now, cause and effect, both in general. But when we talk about specific instances, then cause and effect are contradictory. Like they're not same. The seed of an apple, when it gives rise to the tree, then seed and the tree, they are cause and effect. They are, whatever is a seed is not a tree, whatever is the tree is not a seed. So so you have to understand why I'm saying is that if I get angry in this life, even if I know for sure my past life that this person killed me, that's why this anger is naturally arising. And what Christina is saying is such an important point. It becomes like a vicious cycle. I get angry, and not necessary. We will learn in the next class that even small negativity depends on with whom you're doing the small negativity. The karma can be very negative based on, or a small positive karma can give like a huge positive result, right? For example, of course, let's say somebody saves life of two people, one a very poor person and one extremely rich person. Let's say, somebody saves you save a life of a very poor person and a rich person, and with a very pure heart, not expecting anything in return. But the poor person feels like great amount of gratitude and goes and prays for Christine law, lots of prayers. That's what the person can offer. But the rich person can, overnight say, okay, Christine law, you saved my life. Now I'm giving you $10 million. The same action can give you different results in terms of the money. So not necessary that your small anger is a small anger. What result it gives, it depends. That's the point I'm saying. That's number one. And number two, it's a vicious cycle. That person can give the same reason to you that I killed you because in your previous life you killed me. It becomes a vicious cycle, right? So how do you break that? The best antidote for such negative karma to break is compassion, right? Venerable Thich Nhat Hanh, from the Vietnamese tradition, right? He said a very beautiful thing. Very beautiful thing. I read a quote many years ago and I really loved it. He said, the best miracle that Buddha performed on this planet Earth, that Buddha walked on this planet Earth with such great compassion. Isn't it? We are benefiting because Buddha had compassion. Otherwise, Buddha became a Buddha. What's the need to share the knowledge? Buddha is already experiencing infinite bliss all the time. No need. Just because of compassion of Buddha, right? That we get benefit of all these teachings. So to answer your question, this is the way it will be, right? It's a vicious cycle. Whatever is the cause result. So if I get angry, not necessary that that person will remain nice to me. That person can become little more vicious. Then my anger will increase, and keeps like it at one stage becomes explosive, right? And matter of circumstances. Of course, I can get angry with somebody, and then we never meet each other this life. But next life, who knows how we meet, right? And that person is my next door neighbor. I'm a small kid and he's an adult or she's an adult, can abuse me in any way, right? How the karma ripens, then who knows, right? It becomes a very complicated question. So the best is that we learn in the next class, and Geshla mentioned very briefly in the recording, the 10 non-virtuous karma. And we say, at least to my best ability, I stay away from it. And then as I become more mature, not only staying away from non-virtuous karma, I can start thinking about benefiting beings. That's the best way. Because why? Because if I want infinite happiness, other beings are the most important then. No other option. Okay. All right. Thank you for your question, Christina. Thank you. All right. So we will, I hope most of you can join tomorrow. Tomorrow is 6 p.m. And Venerable Geshe-la will be teaching. He's traveling tomorrow. So he's leading a retreat from day after tomorrow. So he'll be teaching from Thosamling Nagri. Okay. Thank you. Let's do the dedication. Now I'm Satyarana. Thank you.
Thank you, Dipeshla. We'll do the dedication prayer. I dedicate the merit thus gathered toward the realization of the deeds and the prayers of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the three times, and to the upholding of the doctrine of scripture and insight. May I, in all lives, through the force of this merit, never separate from the four wheels of the Mahayana vehicle, and accomplish all the stages of the path: renunciation, bodhicitta, perfect view, and the two stages. From my two collections, vast space that I have amassed from working with effort at this practice for a great length of time, may I become a chief leading Buddha of all those whose minds' wisdom eye is blinded by ignorance. Tayatha Om Gate Gate Parakate Parasam Gate Buddhi Swaha Tyata Om Gate Gate Paragate Parasam Gate Buddhi Swaha Tyata Om Gate Gate Paragate Parasam Gate Buddhi Swaha. Thank you, Dipeshla. Thank you, Tatiana La. Thank you, Eugenie La. Thank you, everyone, for joining today's session. Thank you.
Thank you, Tipeshla. Thank you, Nirmala. Thank you, everyone.
Большое спасибо. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Dipeshla.
Thank you.